Hey, you saw in this video what your loved ones are buying instead of gold and silver. It's going to be like a follow-up to the video that I done, why your loved ones won't buy gold and silver. And on this video, I'm just going to speak about some of the things or situations and stories that I've heard of people, that ain't buying physical metals, and some of the things that they're putting their money behind, and extremely confident putting their money behind these things. You could call them somewhat markets because they seem to be appreciating. So these are the things that your loved ones, maybe your friends, may be putting their money into because they see either more joy, but ultimately they see it's better than the physical gold and silver market. So I'm just going to be bringing a few to the forefront now and to people's attention. Some you may know all of them, some people may not know all of them. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions, and even any other markets or bubbles or things you believe are bubbles that you can add to this. So before we get into this, I'd like to say, if you haven't done so already, please do go ahead and subscribe. And once again, let me know your thoughts and opinions of everything I've got to say in this video and anything you can add towards it. So I'm going to be showing some toned kangaroos. I say toned because I didn't really take too much care of these ones. They wasn't in my care before, but I'll also show a little footage of some clips, and when we get to that we'll speak on that. So jumping straight off, I'm going to say what's playing a large role and what got so many people's attentions into a lot of the things I'm going to be speaking about here is influencers. Influencers today are a lot different than they was yesterday. Yesterday, of course, in the physical metals world, we have people we would consider influencers. We all know who they are. Some call them pumpers and some are just educators. But, today's influencers are different. You could call them whores. I wouldn't say that. But, you can give them anything and they will use the crowd that they have to promote and pump it. Pump and dump, whatever it is. They don't really care. Some have morals and won't back a product. But some, if they think it can do well for them, maybe they'll go a lot harder than others. But influencers play a massive role. So some of the things I'll be referring to, I may bring to your attention that influencers played a massive role in helping propel and push this thing to new heights, because that's what it takes these days to really have something that may be nothing and really make it something. So everything I'm going to be referring to also, there's 101 things out there that people are putting their money on outside of physical gold and silver. They don't have to be doing that. But these just seem to be the things that I've come across where people think or believe, or it does have somewhat of a track record at really either bringing them some type of returns or just being a good investment in general. So jumping straight into this, I'm going to say some of the things I'm going to be putting under this are going to come under the fashion banner. So I'll start with those first. Now, in the fashion banner, straight off the bat, I would say handbags are going to be a massive one here. I'm going to speak on two main brands here. That's going to be Hermes and Chanel. And, there was a young lady that used to do a lot of stacking videos and used to comment. I was in communication with her at once upon a time, and she ended up selling her stack. She came to me for a bit of advice on how to liquidate her stack, and it just wasn't doing nothing for her, and then, she mentioned that she would have been much better off putting the same amount of money into a Chanel bag at the time, as it would perform a lot better, and I believe that's what she went on to do. And she does YouTube videos on that exact same subject now. And a lot of the things I'll be speaking on, you can find communities, speaking on them, either giving tips or how to promote and push them and just finding the best deals, like you would find if you was watching one of my gold and silver vlog videos. So, it isn't all, poppycock out there. There is some real push behind this stuff and some real substance. So, Hermes, I mentioned once upon a time in another video that I had a friend that was working in the design exchange, and she was telling me about a female that came into her inheritance. She wasn't of money, so she was renting, had a normal job, and she came into £70,000 inheritance. This a few years back now, and she decided to put the money out of anything, not even to purchase a property, but into 3 Hermes bags at the time. So 3 Hermes bags ended up costing her £70,000, and my friend was telling me that the bags now were worth over £100,000. So, I found that very interesting. What gives a better return than that? And she was mentioning that these bags, of course they come in levels, but these bags were highly desirable. They'd just popped up, and she took the opportunity. And a lot of females seem to be doing that now. And it's one of the many things that people are looking at, especially women are looking at instead of physical gold and silver, because they see it better there. It's a lot more liquid. It does have a market, a good secondary market that's somewhat, liquid. There's things out there, you look at fashion, it's a massive arena. And so when you can find something that's of extremely high value, and these here didn't need no influence, especially when you're talking about Hermes or Chanel, they're massive brands within themselves that have got a fantastic large history behind them. So these are things that a lot of people now, females specifically, are putting their money behind because it's giving good returns. You know, if you look at that, that could be looked at like property, vintage cars, fine wine, anything that goes up in value. And you wouldn't have thought or expected that, but it's really a massive world. So that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to speak on, that people are putting their money, or loved ones are spending their money on, instead of gold and silver, physical. And next, under the fashion banner, I would say is going to come apparel. And under that, I would mainly pick out one brand, as I've got someone close to me that really trades and, you know, flips this brand here, and that's going to be the Supreme brand. Anybody that doesn't know what Supreme is, look it up. It's a fashion brand. I believe they're on the stock market now trading. So, you know, it's one of those brands. There are many brands, but when I was younger, you know, if it was fashion, you wore it, it was liked, it was expensive. Now, influencers played a massive role in pushing something like Supreme up. They went through a massive campaign of getting a lot of artists, urban artists, and promoting their stuff, and it worked wonders for them, you know. You could now pick up a Supreme t-shirt, damn near for £200 and sell it for over £1,000. The markup on that, and this is happening while, you know, you can't pick up a collector coin, or if you pick up a proof collector coin for $100, you know, you got knocked, you paid too much over spot, you'll be like barely lucky to make $150, and you know, it could tank in price. And you've got guys out there picking up t-shirts. The intrinsic value there is zilch when you think about it, and you know, they're selling that for 10 times plus. And yes, Supreme, one of the many brands, has a massive following in China, Asia, so that could play a role just from how they are presented, you know, with the red background and the white writing. But currently it doesn't seem to be falling off, and you know, the person close to me has been trading this stuff for a very long time. He tells me about the pop-up shops that get put up, you know, they're temporary shops, special invites, and they'll tell me there'll be buyers outside, you know, with lists. And I understand people that get in get the choice of like 3 items, and that's your whack. And there'll be buyers outside in the queue handing them a list, and whatever you bring out, they'll be paying you like 10 times markup for certain things, and even higher, you know. And this is you won't find that in gold and silver now. So these are the crazy things that are happening now. A few of the things that I'm talking to, you're going to find a trend, and you'll see it because demand is playing a massive role here. You know, when you hear of these types of stories where you've got people damn near gorging each other out just to get in the queue or queue jump in, and then you have Range Rovers parked outside handing people shopping lists and coming outside. Could you see that at your local LCS? You know, the best I heard from one of my LCS stories was, you know, at one of the peak times there was a queue halfway down the road. You know, so that was one of the wildest stories. Apparently at these pop-up shops, the stories get extremely wild. So that's going to be another thing that your loved ones are spending their money on instead of gold and silver. Now, following straight off the back of that is going to be another market, and that's going to be the sneaker market. Now, I'm not a sneaker guy myself, but the demographic that I'm speaking on here, even from the apparel, are ranging from 10 years old to 50 years old. And when we're talking sneakers, you can get even younger. You'll find 8-year-olds that can tell you what the new, I'm just going to throw some names out there, you know, Air Force Ones are worth, the new Kanye West sneakers, the Yeezys, and, you know, you got these fancy designer shoes now. These things are trading hands at ridiculous prices. You know, once again, another massive market you can find on YouTube of people giving tips and trips and the best ones to get, and, you know, how well they are investments. These things trade in auctions, you know. Pawn shops are paying massive markups for these things, and these are sneakers, people, you know. So you look at that, it's not technically a market. You can't find out the market cap of these things. There's no hard numbers to go with these, but you can bet your bottom dollar your kids maybe could tell you what designer shoes are, what are highly desirable, what are worth a fortune, Back to the Future sneakers and stuff like that. And these things were created, don't forget, out of pure demand and not being able to obtain them. So who knows? Because I've always mentioned when it comes to the collector coins, they need to build the brand. Everything I'm referring to here, bar one, they've really worked on building that brand, and it's worked in droves. You know, could you imagine your 10-year-old being as, you know, clued on or switched on towards physical gold and metals and understanding what money is and what debt is, and, you know, all of the rest that comes with stacking. But they could tell you what the new Yeezys come out, what are the best expensive ones, what costs a fortune. So they're putting their minds and effort and blood, sweat and tears behind these crazy things. And all of these things I'm referring to, should a crash come tomorrow, I highly doubt these people would, dump them in the bin. You'd need a zombie apocalypse for that to even come. And I've no doubt they'd still clutch onto them, they would just ride it through. So it's very interesting because you've got people, your loved ones technically putting their cash and their faith behind junk. And you could say that all came about the second fiat wasn't back. So who knows? So sneakers is definitely another massive market that your loved ones have decided to pump their money towards. Now, if your loved ones pump their money towards any of the things I'm mentioning, fashion, bags, apparel, sneakers, please do let me know in the comments. And if they don't, and they're extremely switched on, once again, congratulations to you. You're one of the few, So on to the next one that your loved ones are putting their money towards instead of gold and silver is going to be blockchain, Bitcoin. Spoke about many times, so I'll be very brief on this one, but it's something that's taken over. It's here to stay. It ain't going nowhere. This does have a physical market. You can find out the market cap. You can find out the max, in circulation. It has hard numbers to go with it. And it's just a market where many would say, I can't believe it. At least the ones you mentioned before were physical, whereas you have something here that's virtual, not physical. But as we're seeing the trend here, if there's enough demand and love towards it, and even the new kid on the block, influencers did play a massive role in Bitcoin. And if you don't believe me, go look at all the YouTube channels that used to pump it. They was paid to pump, the BitConnect and the others that really did play a massive role. That took a lot of the shine, as we all know, but not to forget the ones I've just mentioned, because you have people putting their hard cash behind these things also instead, because it showed a return. I know people that put money in trainers, sit on them for a couple of years and sell them for a profit. And these are things that I can't fathom, but it just is what it is. So whenever somebody can put their money behind something and it's got a good enough community behind it and a lot of chatter and liquid, even a good solid secondary market. If you look at the sneakers, for instance, there's physical markets where they trade this. It's got a very good reselling strong secondary market. So these things have places where you can liquidate them easily, and not to forget even auction houses. So blockchain is definitely another one where your loved ones are now putting their money instead of physical gold and silver. Now, getting on to the last one, it's going to be one that has a massive history of its own. So people, and it's going to be jewelry, but I'm going to be focusing mainly on watches here because people have always been buying jewelry. A lot of people, if they're into physical gold and silver, own jewelry anyway. So it's always played a role there. But you have a situation now where some jewelry, I'm going to be showing a lot of jewelry. As mentioned in the past, I've done a lot of trading of art and jewelry, i.e. watches in the past. So this is a lot of the watches I trade in the past. And just be showing them in the background and get onto the main point at the end. So, people now like to wear, if they're going to be into it. A lot of people that have physical metals are into timepieces also, so that's a bonus. But situations come up as of late, and best to my attention, where we're seeing the stainless steel market really take off outside of the physical metal, the precious metal market. Now that's something I didn't expect to happen. When I was getting these watches and trading them in, it was mainly for, and I'm going to be speaking on three main brands here, and that's obviously going to be the Patek Philippe's, as you can see there, the Audemars and Rolexes. These brands now, anybody will tell you, are bulletproof. You're going to be getting into watches and you want to put your money behind something. I wouldn't say this has taken a lot of shine away because this market's been out there as long as the physical has. But, you now have a situation where people are now looking at putting their money behind the stainless, is what I was just saying. And the stainless market is purely being based off, when you see these precious metal variants of the watches, a lot of people couldn't afford them and they already came out at very high prices. So the next option was something stainless. The stainless sports Rolex watches, I would say out the three I just mentioned, are technically the cheapest from the authorized dealer. So you'll be getting them at single digits in the UK, so anywhere from £9,000 to £10,000, I believe, around now. So, these watches are now trading on the secondary market upwards of £15,000 to £20,000 sterling. So you do the math in dollars. And it's crazy. It's the piece that made a surprise appearance on the holiday vid, and this is what I'm referring to here. So you now have a situation where people are now, and the stainless steel is the variant here on the right hand side, and the precious metals the variant there on the left hand side. And so what's happened is people couldn't afford the precious metal. Now we could see a situation like that in gold and silver when that magic boom happens and nobody can afford the gold, so everybody flocks towards the silver. But I don't believe that may be the case. It's going to be very interesting to see. What I see here is a love for the brand. People couldn't get the one where this came out in the Pepsi. This is so, you know, at first you could only get the Pepsi bezel on the white gold. Everybody wanted the Pepsi, the presidential strap came out on the white gold. Nobody could get it. Everyone was down. The second it was announced and still, it went through the roof. Now stills were becoming unobtainable way before that on the Batmans and the Hulks. So you now had a situation where people were saving their money, physically saving their cash and willing to pay over the odds, whereas you could have technically got a precious metal variant for around the same price, or the precious metal was the best buy. You cannot get these watches from the authorized dealers. That's also a fantastic thing that they've done there. And when I'm always barking about the collector coins, where I think they should build their brand, you know, a lot of these dealers don't even need to sell the watches now, so they're working very hard on their brand. But not being able to obtain these watches from the authorized dealer also helped push the stainless steels to new highs. Whereas you have people now holding, the cash is burning a hole in their pocket, and they would do anything to obtain these steel watches, a lot of the steel Rolex brands. I helped source these for a friend of mine. You know, I got into watches early 2000. I was out in the Caribbean. I met an Asian family out there that had a load of boutiques, and they was explaining, you know, they were selling a lot of watches at the time. A lot of people were going out to the Caribbean to get watches a lot cheaper, long story short. But, you know, I ended up, you know, moonlighting and selling a lot of watches, built a network. A lot of the people that I was trading watches for and selling watches to are not interested in physical. It was, everybody is still trying to get a hold of stainless. You know, I can source a few secondary market prices, but you could not get these from the authorized dealer. So you now see a situation where someone would sooner not only put their money, of course you're investing in the timepiece and the brand here, but when you're looking at the intrinsic of it, it's a stainless steel. So they're pumping double digits into a stainless steel variant where you can now technically get the precious metal, but they still want what the hype is behind, what is more liquid. And that's going to always be the stainless steel variants until whenever. Is there a bubble? I believe so. What have a lot of people done? A lot of people have, you know, gone elsewhere, gone to different brands. But if tomorrow Rolex made stainless steels available from many authorized dealers, you would see the entire flock rush back towards them. Is there better watches out there? Most definitely. But in the end of the day, these will always be the ones in demand and the most liquid. So it's very interesting to see what demand and hype has done for a lot of the things that I've been referring to, and influencers. Influencers played no roles in the stuff like when we're talking the watches. Once again, very strong history. But when you're talking the bags and, you know, even as far as the sneakers, these things have a mind of their own now. So these are the things that your loved ones are now spending their cash on outside of gold and silver. Where does that leave gold and silver? In my opinion, everything shown or spoken about, when the poop hits the fan and reality kicks in, I think there's going to be a lot of people that, you know, are giving blank stares, deer in the headlamp. But I think the hunger for these things and the lust for them is not going to fade away when that happens. Once again, you'd have to be in a zombie apocalypse for that to really kick in and really throw that stuff to the side. Outside of that, if a crash comes, they'll weather the storm and still flock towards that. Tomorrow's world are looking at more of what I just showed or spoke on than they are physical gold and silver. And it's a dangerous time to be alive when people's minds are so preoccupied with things that are technically junk, and it just is what it is. But I'm going to wrap this one up, guys, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions, and definitely let me know on any other markets that you believe are bubbles or maybe not bubbles, where your loved ones or friends are putting their cash in. They've seen some returns, so they're more than happy doing that. So go ahead and leave your thoughts and opinions on the comments. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll catch you guys on the rebound.